Should one AFC running back snap count make him want you to sit him for week 2 of 2023? What AFC South receiver is in for a big-time bounce back this weekend? And who's your favorite running back named Williams that you have to get in your starting lineups this weekend? Plus the week 1 FFPC main event, 15th place team owners John Laskowski and Barney Newkirk are going to drop by to talk about how they built their team, their toughest lineup decision they're facing this week, and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell, Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell, Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell, Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Welcome aboard. Welcome in. Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Bulkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell, Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to dish on the rise of Puka Nacua and the fall of Drake London. Plus John Laskowski and Barney Newkirk, the two guys that are sitting in 15th place heading into week 2 of the FFPC main event in their chase for that $1 million grand prize, are going to hang out with us. They're going to talk about how they drafted a running back heavy squad. DeAndre Swift's huge night. Was that going to continue? And much more. If you want to connect with us on X, you can do so at HSFF Hour. I am at Eric Balkman. And, of course, check out Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship over at KFFSC.com. You can post on our Facebook page right now, facebook.com/HSFF Hour. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, send them in now, please. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, all the tweets, all the emails in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce. And, of course, our producer and mutual friend, Rob, for putting together tonight's broadcast. The season may have started, but that does not mean that you have to stop building new teams in order to compete for some serious cash week in and week out. Enter the FFPC Weekly Challenge. Here's what you do. You just go to myffpc.com, myffpc.com. And to play the FFPC Weekly Challenge there, you just click on Weekly Challenge. It'll be right up at the top of your screen. There's no draft in this. There's no salary cap. It's basically the same way we do our world-famous playoff challenge. You choose 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. Get them in by Sunday's kickoff, and then just watch them ride through the weekend's games. You can only have one player per NFL team, so no stacking in this contest. You can play for $200 as an entry fee. You can also pay for a $35 entry fee. You can win up to $2,500. Again, myffpc.com is where to go for that. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, FFPC, youtube.com/FFPC Fantasy. Comment on the video, share, get notified anytime we go live, which is going to be quite often still during the season. We're basically going to be going live at least 3 times a week with the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, and the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour at a minimum. You never know. Terp and Aiden might be popping on here to do some weekly previews here and there. I don't think they'll go as heavy as they did last year, but they will pop on from time to time. You never know when you're going to see them on here as well. So great to be back from Las Vegas. Well, not so great because I had a blast out there, as I always do. But it feels good to be home, and shout out to all the new friends I made out there this year. Shout out to all the old friends I saw. Very cool to hang out with you. I only wish I could have done it more. I felt like I was moving just from one conversation to the next, trying to talk to everybody I can, because a lot of you guys and women I only see once a year. So this was like the one time I get a chance to hang out. And thank you for making it so enjoyable. A guy I wish I would have gotten a chance to hang out with more in Las Vegas, more than just passing and having a couple of quick conversations, is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. We'll bring him in right now. You know him as J. Ferrell Elliott on the X. Welcome aboard, Ferrell Elliott from the KFFSC.
Hey, buddy, I thought we were together when not in physicality, certainly in spirit. Balky, the event was a huge success, and, you know, your presence and contribution to it is what is what made that happen. You worked as if you were a machine and more than a man, and I appreciate it, and I think everyone there appreciated your efforts and benefited from it. So thank you for your contribution, sir.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad everything went over well. It was our biggest live event ever for the FFPC, and it might have been among our smoothest. I don't know if, I can't think of, there's not too many times I remember where it totally stunk, but I know this one went over pretty well. I think everybody had
it's never totally stunk, Bob.
No, just partially stunk, basically. That's basically what we're looking at. All right, Ferrell, let's get into it tonight. Everybody wants to know what they're doing for week 2. Let's try to help him out tonight the best we can. Jakobi Meyers is out for Sunday. He is in the concussion protocol. This according to ESPN. This against the Bills. So obviously Devontae Adams, congratulations to him. He's no longer in the injury report. Fire up and ride him. The question here is, Ferrell, and if you have Jakobi Meyers, maybe you went out to the waiver wire this past weekend or this past week on Wednesday night, and you went out and got yourself a Hunter Renfrow or maybe a Michael Mayer who was hanging out there for reasons unknown. Maybe you already drafted Michael Mayer to go with Jakobi Meyers. I would think that Renfrow would probably be the number 2 wideout. Would you be looking at starting either of these guys in a non-bye week, in a week where hopefully you don't have a lot of injury concerns?
Not at this point, because we're still yet to see what kind of commitment they have to Hunter Renfrow as a role player. I don't picture him being a big contributor to this team with what they're asking him to do. If we focus on what we really talked about, and we could not move him, Balky, from double-digit draft position. We talked about him early. We couldn't get the guests to talk about him. We couldn't get anyone to agree with us that Jakobi Meyers was going to be a very interesting proposition in fantasy football this year. And he remained flat throughout all the drafting process. So when Meyers clears protocol and returns, more of that should be expected. And he and Garoppolo have a real good chemistry going already.
First question of the night in the chat room comes from the resident Ivy League professor, Hudson Kern-Reeve. He wants to know right now, Ferrell, which Kansas City receiver is going to be dependent upon the most by the end of the season? Is it Kadarius Toney? Is it Sky Moore? Is it Rashee Rice? Is it someone else? John Terry already chiming in to answer that question. He says D, none of the above, or I guess E in this case, none of the above. I'm kind of with John Terry on this. We've been trying to find that desirable Kansas City wide receiver to have on our squads, and I'm not sure he's there. Again, we didn't find him last year. I don't think we're finding him again this year. It stinks because you have Travis Kelce taking so much underneath stuff, and you have an all-world first ballot Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes throwing the football to him. And it's just weird. You'd think he could throw somebody to make them really great, but I think he's just going to have a bunch of all right and above average guys in Kansas City. I don't really like any of those guys, quite frankly, as being dependable by the end of the season.
In the Socratic teaching method of our Ivy League professor, he's offered up a question that has no answer, but is endlessly open to debate. And I'm not handling any questions from Hudson Kern-Reeve until we get into double-digit weeks. I'm not touching them in week 2. The course has not been going long enough for me to even, I'm sitting in the back row and looking down. But he wants an answer to his question. Kadarius Toney. And he will prove to the fact. He will prove, because they want him to be successful. I've determined that coaching staff in that front office believes in him. That's why they acquired him. They wish they had drafted him. Consequently, they're going to make him successful. And you tell that quarterback, hey, we got a speedy receiver. Go make him look like something. We're going to run a lot of the plays in his direction. Then he's going to be successful. So that's who it is.
So the other thing that these guys are talking about in here right now is the Justice.
These guys should get their own show.
They should. Yeah,
they should get their own show because, we've got a script.
We do have a script.
What else have they got on their mind?
Well, they're talking about the Justice Hill acquisitions in the FFPC this week. So okay. I'm looking at the Mojo right now. Shout out to fantasymojo.com. He's got more than ADP data, does Darren Armani. Follow him on X at Fantasy Mojo. Subscribe to fantasymojo.com. I'm looking at the bid information that he has posted on there. Justice Hill went anywhere from $1 all the way up to $999. The majority were between 100 and 300, so no surprise there. 8 people went 900 or more. The median bid was $254. Hudson thinks it was an overspend on Hill. Quite frankly, Ferrell, I was desperate in a couple leagues, and I did pick up Justice Hill in probably more than a couple leagues for running back. And there's reasons to like him. I think there's other reasons to not like him, but you got to take a shot, and maybe it is an overspend. But I took a shot this week on Justice Hill. Fingers crossed, not starting him this week, but we'll see what happens. There's going to be some pockets for Hill throughout the season, and hopefully I can capitalize there. Your thoughts on the median bid for Justice Hill this week in the FFPC being $254?
I might have thought it would be higher than that, but if you watch the game, you watch Justice Hill take control of the ball all over the field, and especially in the red zone. And he cut back quickly, and he looked fast and reactive, and he also showed patience behind that offensive line. I had gained a lot of respect for Justice Hill. You don't get to see these guys in the preseason like we used to. So week 1 is his essentially his breakout week. So if you're going to spend money on a running back, you might as well spend money on the guy that has the elements of what we were seeing from Justin Hill in week 1, and I think we'll see more of it.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, you got those 2 touchdowns, and you would think that that's going to be the Gus Edwards territory. So I don't know. I'm taking a chance here in week 1, and hopefully you're right, Ferrell, and there are more good things for Justice Hill going forward. Speaking of running backs in the AFC, Breece Hall is going to remain. Now, this kind of gets my goat a little bit, and if somebody can explain this to me, please do, because it irritates me to no end when I hear football coaches, pundits, media members referring to players being on a pitch count. This is not baseball. No. Okay? They're on a snap count, not pitch count. I don't understand it. And I see a lot of intelligent people using pitch count.
But Bucky, you are a broadcast professional. Not everyone is. You got to understand that. Some of these people are just showing up. They go through hair and makeup. You just go through hair. And and quite honestly, you're superior in all aspects of football broadcasting evolution. So I don't really. Okay. And, when it gets to evolution, I mean, Hudson Kern-Reeve can, drop some commentary.
He'd be the expert on that for sure. Okay, well, I'm glad we're of one mind on this, but Robert Saleh said that Breece Hall is going to be on a pitch count.
No, Robert.
In week 2 against the Cowboys. Apparently, Breece Hall tried to talk his way out of being limited on snaps after he had 127 yards and just 10 carries on Monday night against the Bills. But Robert Saleh said that he is going to remain on that pitch count. Dalvin Cook led the Jets, 13 carries, 33 yards against the Bills. He also had 3 targets in the passing game to Hall's 1. I would think, if you went 0 RB, obviously you're playing Breece Hall. But, Ferrell, if you went with a heavy running back team where you have 2 good options in front of Breece Hall, would you still be rolling him out there? I know he did great week 1, but knowing that he's going to be limited, does that still make him a decent guy to be flexing out this week?
What does limited mean? If limited means 12 to 14 rushes, yes. If it means single-digit rushes, no. So you got to figure out what that means. And a lot of that is how you view this game going. And quite honestly, I haven't broken down this game to understand what I think about it. But you want electric players on the field. And, Coach Saleh, despite what he says in front of the media on Tuesday or Wednesday, he'll be in a situation that Breece Hall continues to rip off these runs. He's human. He's not going to bring him off the field.
Right. Yeah.
So and I believe if you don't have a lot of running backs on your team that can contribute with the physical skills that Hall can. So my answer is I will probably put Hall on the field.
I think more often than not, I'm starting him in my leagues too. I'd really have to have a loaded team not to play him this week because of that upside potential, and that's what we're craving in fantasy football for sure. Let's move on and talk about those Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones says that Brandon Cooks is going to be a game-time decision for week 2 against the New York Jets. Todd Archer had this report as he covers the Cowboys for a living. Jones said that Cooks actually does not need to practice this week in order to play against the Jets. I think that the fact that he has an MCL injury right now, Ferrell, to me, he ain't playing. Okay, like that I'm building my lineups based on Cooks not playing. The question here is, and we'll get into Jake Ferguson later, but if you want to bring Jake Ferguson into this, you certainly can. Tight end premium with the FFPC, obviously. But what about Michael Gallup? What about Jalen Tolbert in this matchup against the Jets? I know it's not an easy one. Can we search for any fantasy goodness from Gallup, Ferguson, or Tolbert with Cooks expected to be out?
No, be thankful that this is not a bye week and move on to another wide receiver. You drafted Cooks where? 7th, 8th round in Las Vegas. You've got similarly gifted players in better situations. So, you wait for Cooks to get healthy, and it will be perhaps he'll get healthy quick. Let's just say that.
And that's hopefully let's hope that's what happens, actually. Laskowski and Newkirk are sitting in the green room right now, gorging themselves on all the great hors d'oeuvres we have put out. They're going to be on in just 1 minute. I will want to get to this final thing, and I think this is an important thing. First of all, mea culpa on Calvin Ridley. I said he was probably going to be my bust of the year. And he did not look anything close, remotely. He's much closer to a stud of the year than bust. So congratulations to all those teams drafting him at the end of the second round. Early third round. It looks like you have yourselves a stud this year. I don't have him on any teams. Actually, I take that back. He's on one team of mine. Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson actually said Christian Kirk is going to get his chances in week 2 against Kansas City. Now, Kirk basically did nothing compared to ETN, compared to Ridley, compared to Evan Engram this past week. He ran a route 60% of the Jaguars dropbacks, and he only caught 1 of 3 targets for 9 yards. Peterson's defense of Kirk said, well, the Colts were using a lot of zone coverage, and Kansas City will play more man coverage. That's going to have more of an that's going to present more of an opportunity for Christian Kirk. So yeah, that's good for week 2, and maybe you can trot him out there as a flex, but certainly you have to understand the risks of doing that. And secondly, the fact that this is all that this guy is dependent upon the game plan of the opposing defense, according to Peterson. Again, maybe that's just coach speak. That doesn't make me feel great about starting Kirk the rest of the season. So right now, I'm looking for elsewhere in order to fulfill my third wide receiver, fourth wide receiver in my lineups right now, because Christian Kirk he's a tough sell for me to trust right now, Ferrell.
I don't see it as tough as you. Week 1 can be a lying week. Goddard threw up that goose egg, and then you saw what they tried to do with getting him the ball on Thursday night. But now I will say defensive coordinators, if you can move to a cover 2 or any type of zone defense and take Christian Kirk out of the game, then that might be what you want to do if that's what the Jacksonville coach is telling us. I think Kirk is an outstanding wide receiver. I think he plays with a chip on his shoulder and a lot of respect for him in that wide receiver room. But what they did on Sunday in Jacksonville worked. Lawrence completed more than 70% of his passes, and his team effort. So wherever Kirk was in this, it was not his day. He'll have days coming up. I wouldn't rush him to the bench again if you drafted a complete team. And I did have some very savvy fantasy players tell me both in Kentucky and in Las Vegas that Kirk would not thrive in the slot. I think it's too early to be determined. Not off to a good start. Let's see what happens this week.
And our buddy Jimmy Williams actually chiming in. He thinks that they're going to be in 3 wide receiver sets a lot more this week. So that would bode well for Christian Kirk, obviously.
Jimmy Williams watches the games. And then you know what he does after that, Balky?
He watches them again.
He rewatches.
Yeah.
And that's why he knows.
No surprise there. A couple of guys that are also having a successful year in addition to Jimmy Williams are tonight's guests, longtime high-stakes fantasy football partners. They've accrued more than a dozen high-stakes league titles over the years, probably more than that, quite frankly. Heading into week 2, only 14 teams are in front of them in the chase for the $1 million grand prize in the 2023 FFPC main event. I want you to give a warm welcome to 2 guys who are coming back onto the show, Mr. John Laskowski and Mr. Barney Newkirk. Guys, congrats on a big week 1 and welcome back to the show.
Look at them.
Yeah, we're Steelers Central here in Idaho. Hey, well, before we get started, John might be on a pitch count tonight. He's a little old. It's past the bedtime. So, if he has to leave, I got it. Okay, I got you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm surprised that John isn't warming up in the bullpen with all the pitches he's about to throw tonight, but I'm glad to see he's in front of the screen. This is fantastic. Guys, so congratulations, obviously, on the quick start to the season. And Ski, I want to throw this to you. You're up to 15th in the main event. How did Barney and you guys feel about this team that you drafted? I think a week ago today online, you drafted it from the 11th spot. When you looked at the team afterwards, how did you feel about it?
Oh, we actually felt very good. I mean, we are running back guys, but our mentality this season, especially in this pick, was taking 2 top wide receivers.
And
But
that didn't work. It didn't work out that way.
No, it didn't, because every draft we thought Amon St. Brown was going to fall a little further, and he did. You can get him, and you can get CeeDee Lamb. That was kind of the goal. But when we got to the wrap, he took A.J. Brown. We said, let's just plow on the Nick Chubb, best running back in the NFL. On great offensive line, going to score some points. He doesn't have Kareem Hunt behind him. So we just kind of, a lot of this goes how the draft lays out. Your first round, your second round, then it comes back to you in the third and your fourth. Guys maybe you were looking at picking aren't there. We probably would have. We're really high on Jamar Gibbs.
Mm-hmm.
Jamir Gibbs all season long. Our preseason, we were high on him. But we just had this debate a little bit ago. If Ramondre Stevenson would have followed us, would we have taken him instead? But we started running on the running backs.
One weekend, Balky, and the fellas are already going down memory lane. They're debating what they would have done and could have done. This is a great.
Everybody in football does that.
Now, Barney, I'll ask you. This is a team that you drafted on Friday, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, by the way, that black ball cap is thwarting your natural handsomeness. It's throwing
it is.
It's throwing a pale of you look somewhat sinister there in the dark, and that's because you should, because after the Thursday night game, that's why you got Gibbs where you got him, right? He wouldn't have been available. He wouldn't have been available if you drafted before the game. So I think you really benefited there. CeeDee Lamb, Chubb, Gibbs, and Etienne, you guys had to feel very, very good about this team.
Yeah, man. Like I said, we're normally running back guys, but again, we weren't high on guys like Garrett Wilson going so high with the old quarterback, and it worked out for us. I mean, not saying that Garrett Wilson isn't a good talent, but are you gonna let a horse like Nick Chubb fall?
No.
And our guy was CeeDee Lamb there. We wanted Lamb, we got him, and then Brown went, and we're like, it probably would have been Waddle or Olave there, and it's just a little too rich for our blood. We said, hey, let's just go back to our roots, get our horse, come back and see what falls to us, and that was the best thing that could have happened that Thursday night football game, because Jahmyr Gibbs was going.
And what spot were you in? Which one? Where did you draft from? No, what draft spot?
11. Having him fall all the way back to 11 was an absolute gift. And I mean,
that's incredible.
It's incredible. You're right, because it's one game, and starting off this hot with what we did. I mean, this guy's is almost a start almost every week. He's only going to get better.
I agree.
You look later in our draft, we tried to get Brandon Ayuk everywhere. We were sold that he was the best wide receiver in San Francisco. Of course, he had a great week. Mike Evans, what was that, the 7th round? Mike Evans.
Giving him away
every year. Mike Evans, and then we got DeAndre Swift after that. Mm-hmm. We weren't smart enough to start him last night.
Not a lot of people.
And don't be so hard on us about that. But we thought for sure he's going to do they're going to bring in Rashad Penny, and he's going to be.
How many carries did he have last night?
He had a lot, and he looked good. And that's fine. Like I said, we can suffer through it this week. When you got Nick Chubb, Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Etienne, okay, we don't need Swift this week. I mean, realistically. So this is just another egg in our basket that is going to play out down the road. And man, it couldn't have worked. Like I said, it's rolling pretty hard for us right now. So that's good.
Balky, he wasn't on a pitch count last night.
No, he was not. He was not on a pitch count. Might have been on a snap count. Wasn't on a pitch count.
It was impressive. It was impressive performance, no doubt. Hopefully Nick Sirianni opens his eyes and hey, this is your horse, right? Ride this guy. Let's go.
I want to get back to the Swift conversation in a little bit. Before we do, I think one of the side effects of you guys going with the heavy running backs, in the first 4 rounds, eschewing that second receiver for 3 more running backs, it ended up being that Drake London was your second wide receiver that you drafted, this time in the 5th round. Barney, I want to know what you think happened to Drake London, and how concerned are you about London going up against that Green Bay secondary this week?
Well, listen, I'm very concerned. I mean, you got Jair Alexander, who's a shutdown corner, right? I mean, he's going to shut him down. It's one of the things. We drafted the player, not the situation, and it was a kind of a bonehead move on our part. After you're in the draft, you got 60 seconds. Of course, he's an absolute talent, right? And what saved our butt is getting Brandon Ayuk on the wrap, and I'm like, okay, cool, great. But it is, and everybody who drafted London, you're drafting him because look, what is he, 6'5", 230? I mean, the guy's an animal. But man, look at the situation. Who runs the ball more than Atlanta? You got 2 horses back there. I mean, Algiers not going away. Why wouldn't you just Arthur Smith? He might be the devil for fantasy football guys, right? I mean, and that's a fact. He don't give a shit about your fantasy football team or you. I mean, we're going to run these guys up, and it's
hey guys, I had a birthday this week, and a good friend of mine sent me this card. Can you see that? And I thought that was a clip of the Falcons rushing attack.
It might be.
Oh, yeah.
It might be.
Right out of the 50s, baby. They're it's going to be an interesting year down there. But London will do his thing. But my goodness, that's a team that's a team that's married to running the ball. Let's just put 100%. It that.
Kyle Pitts runs into the same situation.
Yeah,
and I know we're going to talk about tight ends later, but that's the only tight end that we took early in the draft, and we never take tight ends early.
And we didn't even want to do it then. He's like, we got to take him. Oh, no, we don't.
We got him in the 5th round in one of our other main events. We thought that was too much value to let him go by. But that's kind of scary. It's going to be a running team the whole season.
And why not?
Let's get back to the Swift conversation. So I don't blame you guys at all, one bit, for sitting him against the Vikings last night. Mostly because I did the same thing. But I think you can make the case, we didn't know. There's DeAndre Swift probably didn't even predict he was going to have that type of a game.
No.
So I think that the attitude to have, and you guys definitely have the right attitude of looking at this as a positive. Hey, we still have 3 great running backs in front of them. It's not like we're losing Swift this week. He's still going to be on our team, and we can deploy him when we need him going forward. But what's going to happen going forward? I think that once Gainwell gets healthy, then, we're back to where we started at. Where are we at on this Eagles backfield? And Ski, I think when you look at it, Swift definitely stated his case of why he should be the lead guy in this backfield. But is Nick Sirianni going to see it the same way? That's the question we're going to have to answer when everybody's healthy in Philly's running back room.
Well, they lost Boston Scott yesterday, too. That's another one of his favorites that he put in. And they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. You saw the game yesterday. Jalen Hurts for 2 games in a row, the early part of the second game, he didn't look like he was there. We're going to turn around and we're just going to hand the ball off. I think that one drive where they first scored, there wasn't even a pass in that.
Why would you when he's just dominating? I mean, in all aspects of the game. I mean, you don't fix what's not broken. You know what I mean?
And the one thing that would kind of upset you about Swift is he gets the ball on 2 different drives and gets the ball to the 1-yard line, and they rush Jalen Hurts in for the touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts not watched it again. Not watched when Mahomes had his knee go 90 degrees the one year for doing the sneaks. You got a hospital. Reward the guy. Let him run the ball in.
Without those 2 touchdowns for Hurts, it would have been a very sorrowful night for
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I think when you begin to look at where some of the firepower and some of the upbeat aspects of the Eagles team, you begin to look at what's going on over in Indianapolis, and they've lost an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, so you expect that team to look a little different. Balky, you are Mr. FFPC, there's a tight end question that I think you need to ask these guys, and you're perfect for it.
So this is good for you guys because historically you do wait on tight ends in the FFPC, and you did it again in this draft. I believe, I'm looking at the board right now. I believe you guys were the last team to draft a tight end, and you took one in the 12th round, in the 14th round, and then you hit it one more time in the 18th round. Musgrave, Hunter Henry, and Cade Otton. And I got to tell you, you're going to wait on tight end. Drafting 3 of them is probably a smart idea in the FFPC. I think this is shaping up nicely for you guys. I love Musgrave coming into the season. Hunter Henry obviously showed out last week too. I feel like, Ski, you got to be feeling pretty good about your tight end situation, even though you didn't take one until the 12th round.
Yeah, we were all over Musgrave. Of course, you're a Packers fan too, but he was one of the most talented tight ends to come out of the draft. And he just happened to go to a team that throws to the tight ends a lot. So, yeah, we liked him. You know, we start panicking when we get later in the draft. Yeah, we don't have a tight end. We don't have a tight end. He was there, and Hunter Henry might be one of the best receivers on New England.
Number one target, right? Could be, yeah.
Yep. Gesicki was the rumor. You know, they're spreading them out. And they're going to get him the ball a lot. It's the Hunter Henry show there.
Hunter Henry did drop a pass, much unlike him in that last drive. But
he was on a pitch count, Ferrell. He was on a pitch count.
He was on a catch count. He couldn't catch.
That's right. Okay. Let's stop that conversation right now. Okay?
Yeah, he was on a catch count. You know, he couldn't get that last one was just too hot. Just put that on the ground. Hey, a receiver that you guys did not see put the ball on the ground this week, and I want Balky and I to take credit for this because no one listened to us. And I thought initially he would take Skoranic's job away from him, and he did, although the necessity for his deployment in the passing attack for the Rams is brought on with the injury to Kupp, and that's Puka Nacua. And you described London as a beast. It's fantastic catch radius. That's what that player brings to it. But I love Nakua's physicality. He's 6'1", about 215 pounds. He runs very, very precise routes, great hands. He's banged up a little bit. I would like to play him against the 49ers. I'd like to know what round you guys got him in because you took a bullet on London, and you may end up regretting that. But I think Nacua is a full-year player and a big contributor in a Rams offense that everyone, all those pundits that Balky doesn't like talking about pitch counts, they all wrote off the Rams. And the Rams showed up on the road and beat the hell out of the Seahawks and looked like they've got something going on. Your thoughts on Nacua? Do you trust him, if healthy, this weekend? Do you trust him to get in your lineup? And do you like him as much as I do?
We have 3 FPC, which is the first time we've ever done that, and 8 main events. There's only one of those teams that we didn't take Puka Nacua in.
Listen, fantastic. And you took him because you heard it on Balky and I talking about him on this show, right?
It was because of you, Ferrell, of course, 100%. But listen, no, he's a Cooper Kupp clone, right? Look at 6'1", 220. What? Cooper 6'2", 195. They do the same thing. You know how Stafford peppered Nacua. Listen, no Kupp, all Nacua. There's shirts being made. Get one, donate it. Let's go. This guy is electric. He's going to be there. Tutu Atwell and Van Jefferson are deep ball guys.
I appreciate you bringing up Tutu Atwell because as much as I want to brag about as much as I want to brag about Nacua, I sat here and watched Tutu Atwell play wide receiver at the University of Louisville for 2 years, and I convinced myself that he would never play in the NFL. And I see what a team has done, investing in him, putting him on a practice squad, bringing him along. Did you guys go into the waiver wire and pick up Atwell this week?
We did not.
No.
Okay. No, I think he would have been a perfect compliment there, but, you guys can't do everything right. You got to give the other guys a chance. You guys got to give the other guys a chance a little bit. And I mean, you guys were watching Swift run and you were drinking hard and getting some liquid courage about coming on the show and defending Swift. I can understand.
We were heavy into the beer by then. This is not even, we don't think this was even our best team that we drafted. It's just that
it can't be
everybody-
perfect. You got to give those guys. You got to give those guys up in Buffalo a chance to win it for the third year in a row.
Yeah, no, we're coming for you, baby. No, those guys, unbelievable. We got the king of the crop right there, man. We got to knock them off that hill. There's 3 of them, so we're 2 big guys, though. I think we can take them. You know what I mean?
They don't even know what to spend that money on in Buffalo. I mean, how many rings can you get?
Hey, jumping through tables. They better buy some more tables, baby. We're coming, okay? We'll jump through one if we win it. All right.
Nakua has an oblique this week, and so he's kind of iffy. But those guys take their shirts off, and there's not an ounce of fat on those guys. How do they get hurt? Barney and I, our shape is round, but you will never hear of Barney and I having an abductor or an oblique injury. These guys are built like DK Metcalf takes his shirt off, and there's not an ounce of fat on him. How do these guys get hurt? How does the stomach muscle get hurt?
Well, there's bone, dude. We got the
guy hitting.
We got the booty. We're good.
The guys that are hitting them are built the same way. So
but come on. You're starting Nakua. Ain't nobody scared of. Listen,
you're not going to run against.
You're not going to run against the 49ers. You can.
Not going to run against.
If Stafford has time, he's hitting Nakua. He's hitting Tutu the same way. If you have to start Nakua, you're starting with confidence, right? I mean, come on.
With confidence, Balky.
With confidence, baby. Let's go.
Nakua is running the same routes that Cooper Kupp is running.
Same guy.
Yes.
So if Cooper Kupp was in the game, would you set Cooper Kupp against
There
the
you go.
49ers?
Absolutely
No.
No.
There you go. Start Puka.
Like I probably have him on 20% of my teams maybe, and he's mostly going to be starting like in almost all those leagues, if not all of them. I haven't looked at every single one yet. But yeah, I think that when push comes to a shove, you're probably playing Nakua this week because of the Kupp injury. Now, because of the Greg Dulcich injury, I know you guys picked up Adam Troutman this week on this 15th place main event team. What kind of production are you expecting from Troutman while Dulcich is out, which could be a multi-week thing? And by the way, I'll throw that up.
Guy. That's all there needs to say. He's a Sean Payton guy. And we know Sean Payton's a pretty decent. He's good at football, right? He's a good coach, right? I mean, he brought him over. He was already going to steal. Everybody's on the Dulcich train. Hey, I was too early. And then you go, what's 26 years old, 6'5", 6'6"? You like Troutman. And where's the what? Well, Judy coming back, but you like Troutman. Come on. I love Troutman. We got him in a lot of places. You got to trust that Sean Payton's going to get that ball in that guy's hands in the end zone. Red zone guy at least,
Hey, guys, where did Troutman go to college?
Oh, boy.
See, I wanted to get the Pittsburgh. I wanted to get the Pittsburgh guys to have to say University of Dayton just to talk about Ohio. But anyway, we move on. Well, you guys have already messed up the Swift situation, and you're already playing. You're already playing the injured rookie. And I will tell you this: I love the partnership between you guys. How many years has it been?
Oh man!
Well, we got.
Here we go.
Let's look here. We got a book.
2008 Wyckoff.
Wow!
Yeah.
If you look in the back, they taped $10 to the inside of that on the back cover.
Well, I think we were due a little more money than 10, but it's
okay.
I
heard something about that.
See what happened was,
if yours is not there, I'll put a $10 bill in the mail to you. But okay, I have a partnership in the FFPC main event with my good friend Trevor Holt from down here in Louisville, Kentucky. And Trevor handled the last few rounds of the draft for us. Not only did he take Puka, he took Kyron Williams, who's another fantastic player to talk about.
Great pick.
Great. Yeah, exactly. And so we've got a 19th and a 20th round pick to try to figure, did those guys go in the lineup against these great 49er defense? But what's your toughest decision this week, considering, Swift? Yeah, but we'll give you a pass on that. What are you going to do with London? What's your toughest decision?
We're sitting London. I think our biggest, and I don't think it's really big at all. This team's pretty loaded, and we have the same situation in a couple other ones.
Starting Puka. It's
Puka because our team's pretty loaded. You put them in there and with somebody that's more experienced. They are playing the 49ers.
Yeah,
I put on here Jahmyr Gibbs or Puka.
Gibbs is starting. We're not even. It's Gibbs over. We're not even doing it.
Right. Yeah.
Not even doing it. It might be the Musgrave Hunter Henry thing. You know, do we start them both?
Oh, now that's tough. That's tough. We know what Balky would do.
Hey, you're going Musgrave for sure. I mean, a great matchup, dude. He get like ran 79% of the plays. He could have had a couple touchdowns. You're starting Luke Musgrave for sure. I'm not scared about that. I mean, do you put Henry in there? That's the question, you know. But no, we're sticking with where our guys.
Just so you guys know, we don't have Puka in the starting lineup on this team. At this
Right.
point.
Yeah. Well, you better keep talking. That's all I
can say. Speaking of talking, Jimmy Williams is talking in the YouTube chat. Ferrell kind of alluded to this, guys. He wants to know what you think about San Francisco's defense and kind of what happened between Kyron Williams and Cam Akers last week. Ski, I'll throw this one to you. Your thoughts on sort of the Rams backfield going forward now?
Well, we drafted Cam Akers, but the teams that we did go wide receiver Henry are heavy. We had Cam Akers in a few of those, and that's kind of frightening. Kyron Williams he looks pretty. He looks more than like a second-year running back, and he is from the University of Notre Dame, by the way. And it's we got to do with kids.
We got the little guy.
He's on a kid count right now.
We got the little guy. We're on a pitch count. We're on a kid count.
Yeah,
well, guys, after you win that $1 million, you can hire a nanny for when you have these appearances, the media appearances. You can hire a nanny to take care of your kids. A handsome devil. Look at that guy.
Look at that handsome devil. Oh, yeah. Say, go Bears.
Even he can't. Barney, even he can't after last week.
No.
It's tough. It's tough.
Okay.
So
everybody that has Akers is worried.
Well, okay. All right. I think I want to skip to this. I got a couple of emails here, and Barney, I'm gonna pitch the first one to you. Roger in Cambridge, Mass. Was it just one bad game for the Bears, or is this what I should expect from them this season? It wasn't great for Chicago, but there's still a lot of talent there, man.
No, we're worried. I mean, you got to be worried, right? I mean, they didn't do a whole lot right. Their defense is man, it's atrocious. Yeah. I mean, you got to be able to stop somebody. They didn't do anything right. I don't think they're using Justin Fields right. So you got to be concerned, especially with how well the Packers played.
Go ahead, Ferrell.
Well, you do have hope in Chicago. I think it centers around Roschon Johnson. I'll just say that. I thought that was I got a good feel for how he looked. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, and it was all DJ Moore owners are a little bit in the panic mode
right.
too. So.
Yeah, totally, and they should be.
First week's the Lion Week, guys.
It is. You can't panic too much. It's just 1 week.
Right. Ski. Let me throw this one to you. Phil in Rockford, Illinois. How nervous should I be about Geno Smith this week, given that he's missing his starting 2 tackles this Sunday? Thanks. That's Phil in Rockford, Illinois. I am ashamed to say this, but I actually benched Geno. All right, beg your pardon. I benched Kirk Cousins in favor of Geno Smith in probably like 2 or 3 leagues. Not my finest moment last night. And now I find out that Abe Lucas and Charles Cross both going to be missing the game for the Seahawks this week. Ski, this is significant, right? I mean, we should be concerned about a quarterback missing both of his tackles, right?
Right. For any team that use 2 starting tackles, are out here in trouble. Probably going to affect the running game with Kenneth Walker. If he has any chance, he's going to have to get the ball out fast and get it out to those wide receivers. And yeah, it's not a good.
And they're in Detroit. It's
right.
It'd be different if they're in Seattle. They play a little better at home and second half team, right? I'm from Alaska. All the Seattle Seahawk fans in Alaska pour me down every week. But man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding. I think you might start him though if you have to. I mean, still enough weapons, right? I mean, 3 stud receivers, and Jake Bobo.
I think the other thing too is, I almost have to start him at this point because I don't want to go dumpster diving for guys like Jimmy Garoppolo or Baker Mayfield off the waiver wire and start them over Smith. I'm still going to go with them. Aiden Hutchinson is licking his chops right now. His Lions are a 4.5-point favorite in Detroit against the 0-1 Seattle Seahawks. That is a 1:00 kickoff on Sunday. Ferrell, I think it's time for our final question for Ski and the Barn Dog.
Well, and it's great to have this question for you guys because it is a futures question until the season starts, and then when the season starts, it becomes a real question. Who would not have any shot of being in your lineup, rostered or not rostered? Any player that you just don't believe will deliver this week, and then who is the sleeper? Who is week two's Puka and Tutu and that type of player? Could it be Roshan Johnson from Chicago? Could it be, Balky brought up Hunter Renfrow, who could have a great fantasy game. I almost started Kirk Cousins over Hurts last night and wished I had. So tell me something. You go deep down into that wisdom and give us an answer for those two situations.
Well, I had like 10 guys on the list not to start. Antonio Gibson has got to be one. On the teams that we drafted really high on wide receivers, we were looking at running backs that we thought Eric Bieniemy is going to throw the ball all over the place to Gibson. I got like one carry, maybe one throw at him last game.
Welcome to his
and
career.
that was bad. And then I put Cam Akers too.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be in our lineup anywhere.
Who's your sleeper?
There's your answer to that prior question, Balky.
Yeah, Akers against the Niners not going to be good. I can't imagine that he's going to be good. And then Antonio Gibson too. Brian Robinson looked really good last week. They go to Denver this week. Easily see.
Not start Brian Robinson. He's my bust this week. I mean, Denver's number 3 against the run. You don't start him at Denver. No way. And hey, Calvin Austin III, get him, put him on your team, ride that little guy because my God, when he had six receptions. I mean, 6 receptions and going to play the slot. Everybody's on the Allen Robinson train, but what is he, 50 years old? I mean, the guy I mean, come on. Calvin Austin III, get him now.
He's got the same.
Thank me in week 6, baby, and ride that horse. Let's go.
Allen Robinson has the same color hair as Ferrell now, doesn't he?
He might. No, maybe.
My sleeper and Ferrell's not going to agree with me because we don't know what's going to happen in Kansas City. Do they need a stud wide receiver once he gets Kels back?
No,
I'm going Rashee
exactly
Rice.
right. They don't.
We drafted Rashee Rice and there's another guy. He's not really a sleeper, but there's another Shaheed in New Orleans. I don't know if you'd call him a sleeper, but that guy's a speed burner, and it looks like
we like him in tremendous speed.
I think that's and Barney, you said bench Brian Robinson, start Calvin Austin, right? Or at least pick up Calvin Austin.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got to have. I don't know if you. Hey, he's right there on the cusp, but he's my sleeper. You gotta roster him. I mean, we put a bunch of. He's on a couple of our teams, but you got to get him. If you don't get him now, like I said, by week 4, he's not going to be available, and he's going to be putting 8-10 targets on the board weekly for Pickett, who's struggling week 1. But I'm not scared. I mean, that team's it's week 1. It's week 1. But yeah, he's my sleeper probably for the year. So
there's another wide receiver that we drafted on every team, and if he kind of starts meshing with Anthony Richardson, is
Josh Downs. Yeah.
Josh Downs. We're big Josh Downs. Yeah, big Josh Downs guys.
We drafted a ton of rookie wide receivers towards the bottom. We got Hyatt from the
Jaden Reed, Downs, and Puka were our big 3 we had to have. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and Reed's looking really good too. Especially, I think Watson gives it a go this week, but regardless, Reed looks like he's already in midseason form in his rookie year in Green Bay.
Yeah, he looks good.
It is just week 1, as we have said numerous times during this interview. But week 1 or not, these two guys are sitting in 15th place in the FFPC main event as they chase that $1 million grand prize. Barney Newkirk, John Laskowski, always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Thank you so absolutely much. Love being on.
Congratulations on the success so far. Go ahead and bring home that $1 million check, guys.
That's the goal.
2 of them.
Two of them. Yeah. Fantasy Pros and the main event. You guys can have $1 million each. It'll be great. Oh, and by the way, I'll just leave you with this. If anybody takes anything away from this interview tonight, I think the thing that you need to understand is that it is never pitch count. It is always snap count. Okay, get that through your minds, and it will be a successful Friday night for you, gentlemen. Be good. Enjoy Idaho. We'll talk with you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. All right.
See you, fellas.
See ya. John Laskowski and Barney Newkirk hanging out with us tonight here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football, our 15th place in the FFPC main event. A lot of good stuff from those guys, as I knew it would be. I mean, they've been on before. They're always good. I did not expect the cameo from Barney's kid coming on, but that was always good.
I'm not sure that was Barney's kid.
Oh, maybe it wasn't Barney's kid. I don't know.
Passing through.
It wasn't.
And those guys were great. I mean, Hudson Kern-Reeve, he's all over the place tonight, and now he first put that his girlfriend put him on waivers, which means that he could be in Vegas. Did you see that, Bob?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
and then he corrected it, but you need to be thorough, Hudson. And then if you had been thorough, you would have never had to go, we will probably marry. See, the word probably doesn't belong there. I mean, what does that mean, Bucky? The more he types,
well, she does have to say yes, Ferrell. That's the thing. Like, he can ask, but she's still got to say yes.
Yeah,
which is why he put that probably in there.
Probably marry. I just know that's,
Hudson Kern-Reeve wedding bells aside. Let us go into tonight's fantasy feedback. Basically, starts or sits for all the questions that we've had. We've had a few of them tonight in the chat room, and we thank you for it. Let's go to Norcross, Georgia. Hey, guys, which is the right Williams to go with this week, Jamal or Javonte? So Jamal Williams is at Carolina this week. Again, no Alvin Kamara. Kendra Miller, I believe, was a limited participant in practice today, so he could get out there and make his NFL debut against the Carolina Panthers. Javonte Williams is at home against the Commanders. We were talking about this last week in Las Vegas, and I think our buddy Jake Venuti said, I can't believe all these running backs that had all this volume and did nothing with it. And he did mention Jamal Williams in there. And usually I bet on volume, but I am going to go with talent here, Ferrell. It's close. I think I'm going to go with Javonte Williams against the Commanders over Jamal Williams on the road against Carolina.
Yeah, this is a real easy question. And again, Balky, I want to take us and give us the proverbial gold star, because when everyone was scared of Javonte Williams, we said he is healing perfectly, right, and he's going to be fine. And, and none other than the great drafter from Texas, Dave Hubbard, came up to me and said, "Man, I sure hope you're right about Williams, because I got a lot of Williams, and you should have a lot of Williams. You can be encouraged by the fact, I think it was 13 carries. It will be more. I think that team's going to get better, and we know what that coach does with the running back. So that's not even a one you think about. That's an automatic click and go."
Click and go, indeed. Now, this one's a little bit tougher, and this is a decision that our guests tonight we're going to have to make, but they're actually benching both of these guys this week, because their team's so loaded. Why not? Patrick in Lansing, Michigan, asks, is it too reactionary to sit Drake London in favor of Puka Nacua in week 2? Now, Drake London obviously taking on the Packers at home. Puka Nacua actually is facing the San Francisco 49ers at home as well. This is close. And I think for me, given all the volume that Nacua saw last week, I was saying this, my local fantasy football show here that I do in Northeast Wisconsin, I had a guy who was saying, like, I do not believe in Puka Nacua. That is not a guy I want to, hitch my waiver wagon to. And I said, okay, well, I get that. But at the same time, volume like he saw in week 1, he had the second most targets of anyone in the NFL in week 1, which means he's second in the NFL in targets on the season. That just doesn't go away in a flash. Like, maybe it dissipates eventually, but he's still in for a lot of targets this week. We found out he's listed as questionable, but he's going to play. Yeah, I'm going to bench London and play Nacua.
He was successful with the targets, and as the number one targeted round receiver, there's going to be some adjustments made by the Niners, and he might not have the same kind of success that he had in week 1. But we're in a situation here where he might be targeted damn near as much as Atlanta would throw the ball. Atlanta's got a different script of how they want to play. Now, they have the Packers. Am I right, Balky?
Yes, Atlanta does, yeah.
Now, do you suspect that Atlanta will have continued success running the ball against the Packers?
Well, this will be the first big test for the Packers' rush defense, but it's not been good in recent years. I don't know if either Robinson or Algier get over 100 yards themselves. but I bet they combine for 130, 140 rushing yards.
So if they're going to be successful like that, then that answers your question right there. And now John Terry is in the chat room saying, not sure how anyone can play London until something changes. Well, we knew what Atlanta was going to try to do. And I don't think John Terry must have drafted London. I know I don't have him on any team. And, he's a wonderful player. With no, he's in the wrong band right now. So,
tight ends. Let's talk about them.
Okay.
This is a question from Jim in Pensacola. Yeah, Jim in Pensacola, Florida. What's up, guys? I only have one slot available this week for either Jake Ferguson or Cole Kmet. Which is the correct Fantasy Pros start? That is Jim in Pensacola, Florida. Jim, thank you for the email. So Jake Ferguson this week is at home against the Jets. Cole Kmet goes down to Central Florida to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a tough question to answer because we didn't get to see the real Dallas offense on Sunday night because the Giants thought the game was scheduled for Monday night or Tuesday night or something, and they failed to show up for it. So I don't really, have a good answer here. I guess I'd lean towards Kmet because, I think he saw like 7 targets against the Packers, and he was one of those guys that actually looked all right. There's the unknown with Ferguson. Obviously, if Brandon Cooks doesn't play, he enters the fray as maybe a reliable touchdown guy or a reliable red zone guy. So I don't know. I'm going to go with Kmet, but you ask me tomorrow, I might say Ferguson. Can you provide some clarity on this, Ferrell?
I watched the films of the game, and I kept having to remind myself how badly it was raining because Ferguson had a hard time hanging on to the ball. I think this team, the Dallas Cowboys, made a mistake by not signing Dalton Schultz, and I think both their tight ends that they have on the field, the other kid from Indiana, are challenged to be contributing NFL tight ends. And Cole Kmet, who situation dependent, I've never been a fan of, but who begrudgingly I have to give the tip of the cap for having a good end of the season last year, and that's the player I'm going to go with. And now I must announce that I have rostered Cole Kmet because oddly enough, in one of my leagues, he was a free agent. And I don't really know how that happened, but I was glad to welcome him on the roster.
Good for you. Congratulations on that Cole Kmet share. I will wrap things up with our emails tonight, Ferrell, with a quarterback question coming straight out of Whitestone, New York. Brock Purdy over Deshaun Watson this week. What do you think? Keep up the fantastic work. That's Ed in Whitestown, New York. I screamed to the heavens about Brock Purdy, most of the drafting season when he was coming on and he was, now you could make the case that he was on a pitch count because he's actually pitching the football for it. But I still don't think it holds water. I still think you have to say a snap count. But when I found out he was, ahead of schedule, everything was going good. Same thing with Javonte Williams, right? Everything we heard was very positive about Brock Purdy. I'm like, why is this guy going in the 18th round and the 19th round as like the 21st or 22nd quarterback off the board? That should not happen. I have a ton of Brock Purdy this year. I have a little bit of Deshaun Watson, who is at Pittsburgh this week. Purdy is at the Rams. That defense is terrible. Man, give me Purdy all day over Deshaun Watson.
I think that's the case here. And we're dealing with a situation where both of these quarterbacks, compared to to some of the guys that are going to throw the ball in the mid-30s, that will have lesser attempts. So Purdy has the better chance to be successful with the players that are around him. You complete a little drop pass, a little screen pass to McCaffrey, and the next thing you know, he runs 50 yards with it. The same thing with Ayuk, who is playing with an intensity. Samuel, the tight end, will probably get more involved. Everything there points to great success for Purdy, and I think that success is between the 20s and in the red zone. Cleveland in a grudge game against a Pittsburgh team that was overwhelmed by the 49ers. Looks like they'll probably step up and play a different game this week. So, yeah, Purdy it is.
Purdy it is. Chris Lude obviously agreeing with us tonight. Kern is saying the same thing. Right, Balky. God, something my wife has I've never heard her say that.
Oh, Balky.
Yeah, she doesn't call me Balky either. She was like, Eric, that's wrong. I hear that a lot, which is fine. She's the smart one in the family.
Do you have any other pet names for you?
Let's see. None that are suitable for YouTube. So I'll have to keep that between me and her. But, have a couple of beers on next week's show. You never know what I might say.
Yeah, I might have to buy the book.
Buy the book, exactly, yes. Ferrell Elliott, KFFSC.com, at @JFerrellElliott on X. So good to have you back here on the airwaves. So lucky to be back on the airwaves after we basically hadn't been on for 3 weeks. So
it seems like a long time.
It does.
I missed you, Balky.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's not take next week off. Let's do it again at 10 o'clock next Friday.
Right.
Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ferrell Elliott joining me here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. That will complete tonight's program. I want to thank John Laskowski, Barney Newkirk, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. Got Hudson Kern-Rivas trying to guess some of the pet names that my wife has for me. No, it's never been Sugar. No, it's never been Hottie. Definitely not Hottie with the beard. And then it's never been Firestarter. That's I don't even know if she ever called me Firestarter. I'd be convinced she's having an affair. There's no other way around it. That'd be so odd to hear that. What's not odd is we are back weekly, Friday nights, 10 o'clock. No Fridays off. So we will be back next Friday. In case you missed it, you can actually watch the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown this week. We had 15-time FFPC League champion Jeff Howell on. That was actually Wednesday this week because my flight got in late on Tuesday. But normally the High Stakes Lowdown will air Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. right here on the FFPC social channels. You can also check out last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network on any of the Better Sports social channels as well as the FFPC social channels with yours truly. And then Sportskeeda's Fighting Chance Fantasies, Fantasy Points, and the Fantasy Football Hustles. Brian Drake, talk about a guy who works a ton. He was on with me last night. Fun 2 hours with that dude. You can go back and watch that at your convenience on the interwebs. And then this coming Thursday, we'll be live again at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Don't forget about the FFPC Weekly Challenge. Just go to myffpc.com to play. No draft, no salary cap. Choose 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses by Sunday's kickoff. And then you can just watch them ride through the weekend's games. Remember, only one player per NFL team, just like the FFPC Playoff Challenge setup. That is what the weekly challenge does at myffpc.com. $35 or $200 to enter. Win up to $2,500. myffpc.com. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share, and get notified every time we go live, which will be, again, Tuesday at 10 o'clock Eastern time, Tuesday night. And we'll get you set for, we'll discuss the fallout with week 2 and then get you set for week 3 on that show. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Really appreciate it. Downloading, streaming, listening, whatever you're doing, consuming this content. Can't thank you enough. That is all. Your weekend officially starts right now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
All right, so one of the things I'm going to put the kibosh on right now is the pet names that my wife might be calling me because it's really creeping me out. That I really don't want to. John Terry, I don't even know if I should say this. No, my wife has never called me moist beard, and if that's not a perfect way to end tonight's broadcast, I don't know what is. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully, we'll be back next week, and I still have a wife. Good luck in week 3, everybody.